Taking men to space took many resources, as well as great scientists and visionaries willing to draw up the perfect design. For most of human history, the task was unfathomable. However, upon the creation of the V-2 rocket, the spaceflight industry was born. The V-2 rocket was an alcohol-fueled ballistic missile created by Wernher von Braun, but it was also an invention that changed history as we know it. Von Braun was the scientific genius that worked on many of the Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapon designs, for the German military during World War II. Despite his line of work, von Braun did not fully accept Nazism. However, he wasn't known for having a strong moral compass. A man of his trade, he worked for whomever gave him a good opportunity. Soon after the war, von Braun was shipped to the United States under Project Paperclip. Von Braun was part of an amateur rocket club while he was an engineering student from 1930 to 1932. The German army, then still quite small thanks to the Treaty of Versailles, was interested in liquid fuel rockets as future weapons. In late 1932, Army officers transferred von Braun to the main university in Berlin to secretly study this rocketry. Just after he began work, Hitler came to power. The V-2 rocket was designed with the concept of a bullet in mind. German rocket scientists needed to assume this shape because they lacked the wind tunnels to test the aerodynamics of different shapes. By the time the wind tunnels were designed and constructed, the V-2 was already ordered for completion. Seeing as this rocket could reach nearly 5 times the speed of sound, it was a miracle that the design held up. It had its flaws, though, as it was not very accurate. It was still astounding for the first ever ballistic missile. Great Britain had spies investigating the V-series rockets, so they knew that the Germans were making a long-range rocket. Their original estimates said that the rockets would not be finalized for another 12 months, but the Führer wanted them ready for use as soon as possible. The British estimated that few rockets, if finished before scheduled, would be launched, but the only logical target for the first strikes was London. The V-2 rocket was first used in war on September 6th of 1944. Then 2 days later, a long bombing campaign on Great Britain started. This campaign saw more than 1,100 V-2 rockets, and only ended on March 27th of 1945. 2,340 V-2 rockets hit London, England during World War II. From these, 5,475 civilians died, while about 16,000 more were injured. The V-2 rockets, although they weren't very accurate, were impossible to shoot down because of their supersonic speed. Victims couldn't hear or see the rocket coming, only after it exploded. Although the V-2 rocket was not as lethal as the Germans expected, it was very demoralizing, and it caused a lot of stress as well as evacuations in England. Despite the fear surrounding the weapon, it was much more expensive than bombing from planes, and thus actually an ineffective method. While speaking to the House of Commons, Winston Churchill explained, "Casualties and damage thus far have not been heavy, although I am sure the House will wish me to express our sympathy with the victims." It's also important to note that, while less than 6,000 people were killed by the V-2 rockets, 10 to 20,000 people died due to the concentration camp labor that was used to manufacture the rockets. After the war, Allied powers captured German rocket facilities. In the United States Project Paperclip, 300 boxcars of V-2 parts were shipped back to America. The German scientists leading that study of rocketry, including von Braun, were also taken to America. The U.S. military kept this operation secret because the V-2s were assembled by slave workers in concentration camps like Dora Mittelbau. These scientists were instrumental in the first American V-2 rocket flight tests. The Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory did years of high-altitude research with the V-2 rocket. They documented details about the modifications done to the rocket for scientific use. This research was part of the Bumblebee project, which was conducted at the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. As the government gathered more and more information from the German rocket scientists, they started on their own military rockets. These were the Redstone rockets. They were essentially modified V-2s. They had the same fuel composition, and their engines were strikingly similar. NASA purchased 10 of these rockets from the Army and used them in the Freedom 7 mission, which flew the first man into space. Nowadays, thanks to the research of V-2 rockets, we have satellites which are used for GPS and television. We have space telescopes which let us begin to discover the infinite mysteries of the universe. And we have the International Space Station, an astonishing display of technological advancement and international cooperation. Spaceflight, astronomy, and the world would not be the same without the V-2.